What's this concept of sustainability and how does it apply to a business venture? Well, I've always thought about the characteristics of survival and resilience as being essential characteristics of any business. You might have high growth potential, but how long is it going to last? And how do you protect your existing customers from being poached by an aggressive competitor? What we need to do is we need to look beyond the traditional entry barriers. We often talk about such factors as patents or brands or trademarks or licenses or rights, but we need to move beyond these, because if we're only using one approach to the marketplace, that may be able to be eroded by a competitor with, let's say, new technology. So let's start with the customer. How can I lock the customer in so the customer is willing to deal with me over a longer period of time and will not approach my competitors? Well, the classic way of doing this is through some sort of supply contract, preferred supplier agreement, long-term capacity agreement, or a contract for price volume discounts. But it's an agreement which will last for some period of time, and during the time of that agreement, you are somewhat protected from your competitor. A slightly weaker version of that would be a loyalty scheme. Whether it's a frequent flyer scheme or one free for every 6, it tends to attach the customer to you if there are cumulative benefits for the customer. Another form of lock-in is through embedded relationships. So where we build knowledge of our customer and our customer builds knowledge of us, so that over time it becomes easier and easier to do business, that entanglement of supplier and customer becomes very valuable to both parties. And they're reluctant to move away from that because it can become a very efficient way of doing business. Another strategy is to use what's called switching costs. So if the time, hassle, stress, cost of moving from one supplier to another supplier is very high, the customer will tend to stay with their existing supplier. Now, you might achieve high switching costs through a dependent relationship. If I'm using a unique ingredient or component in my ultimate product, then I'm somewhat locked in. If the time that I take to move from one product to another, because I've got to re-engineer systems or change software suppliers or change my underlying technology, then I'm reluctant to do that. So switching costs is a great way to retain customers as well. What about the outbound channel? If your intended customer can only buy from restricted points of purchase and you have the only product available at those points of purchase, in a sense, you own the entire supply chain. Or what about your supply point? What if there is an ingredient or a component or some knowledge, some content, which is required for the ultimate solution, and you can either own that or lock that down so that you're the only supplier? Again, you own the ultimate customer solution. And then, of course, you've got the more traditional forms of protection. The copyright, the patent, the brand, the trademark, the license rights, or mining, forestry, or fishing rights, all which restrict the competition. And another form of protection is what I call deep expertise. If it takes a long time to assemble or to create the level of professional content or information or expertise that you have within your solution, then that alone is a form of protection. So sustainability over time is about protecting your business from erosion from aggressive competitors. And you should think about different forms of protection all the way through your supply chain. Locking down the customer, protecting your outbound distribution channel, building barriers around your expertise and your intellectual property, locking down your points of supply. I liken this to a brick wall with many, many bricks that form a barrier between you and the competitor. And the more techniques that you use to gain sustainability and protection of the business over time, the more time you buy from an aggressive competitor, where you can go and you can find another way to compete. But sustainability is an absolute key characteristic of high growth ventures.